Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, but I thought I would come back with an interesting topic that came to mind while speaking to Cooper, actually, over on my other channel, Pushing Film. But also before that, I had it jotted down on my list of potential topics that was kind of brewing in my mind. And that is, as you would have seen from the title, what I called the pitfalls of Instagram. And this is not a big fear-mongering thing. I'm not into that. It's just more of like a discussion and a gentle reminder of some of the bad sides of this social media platform and probably applicable to other social media platforms. But just to preface that, I want to say that I really enjoy Instagram. I think there's a lot of good sides to it and other social media platforms for us photographers. And whether or not you're a photographer, actually, you might find some of this applicable. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure I put that out there first, and that I do use it and I enjoy using it. And there's a lot of good sides to it. And I'm really thankful that we have a way of communicating our interest, which is photography or other things, and getting inspired and meeting people. And there's a lot of really good sides to it. But what I wanted to talk about in this video is something that I find affects a lot of other people, especially. It does sometimes affect me, but I find I really get a lot of commentary about this from others when I chat to people who feel really uninspired when they're on Instagram or because of it. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I did write down like 3 dot points, which I'm just trying to bring up at the moment. But yeah, the first one was what I already touched on, which is separating inspiration from like demotivation. So like making sure you're getting the good side out of using a platform like Instagram for photography inspiration, or, communicating your own voice through your work, and separating that from the demotivating aspect that can have, which is what I find happens with a lot of people, where you go on and you see other people's stuff and you think mine's not as good. And I'm sure this is applicable to non-photographers as well. And it demotivates you, or it makes you feel uninspired, which is not what we want. So remind yourself why you're on this platform and what you enjoy about it, which for me, the way I treat it is kind of like just a journal, an online posting board, so to speak. So I can chuck my photos on there. And at least for me, I don't put too much personal life stuff on there. Like, not that I mind that. It's just never been a habit of mine. But I guess I'll talk about it more in how I use it, which is, I'd put up my personal work type photography, whether it's street portraits and so on, just as something to look back on, just as a way of like sharing that, putting it out there, and without too much expectation. Sure, there might be some subconscious expectation, but nothing prevalent. And then having that to look back on, because I enjoy going back, like, 6 months or a year, or looking back at some photos I had from traveling, or looking at how I've improved, for example. Like, the only thing I wish Instagram did better was the ability to scroll back, long periods, like a year to multiple years. That is the one most broken thing about the platform. But yeah, what I do like, and it gets harder more time goes on, is going back and seeing where I was with my photography, how I've improved. What was I going through in terms of phases, and like looking at my photos next to each other helps me figure out, how do they work with each other? Are they cohesive? Are they not? Does this kind of blend work well with this type of black and white shot with the color one? Or does this series of street photos look good together? And it gives me ideas for then putting things into sequence for zines or website or books or whatever it might be. So that's how I treat it. And I find that inspiring, both by looking through my own progression, but also by looking at what other people are doing and getting inspired by the work they do, and getting ideas, or just feeling like some emotional connection to what people are putting out there. So I really enjoy that aspect. I'm not as much into putting up selfies and all that, although, if you scroll back enough, you might find 1 or 2 here and there. But what draws me to it is getting inspired and having that journal. Okay, so try not to get demotivated. And one of the best ways to do that is, I think, the second point I have written down, which is the aspect of spending too much time on there or other platforms, whether it's TikTok or something else, but especially Instagram. I think a lot of people might just end up being on there too long. And I think if you really burn the candle, or whatever the saying is, you'll stop getting inspired at a certain point and just fall into the pitfall of demotivation, of doom scrolling, of just wasting time, really. So there's a cool feature that I'm sure most people watching know about, but if you didn't, you can go in and go into your settings and actually see how much time you spend on average. So there's a page. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but basically it tells you the amount of time you're spending, and I can see there that I've spent 11 minutes on average, and it goes up and down depending on the time. But like, use that as a guide. And I'm not saying there's a set amount of time that's good or bad, or that I've always had an 11-minute average. Sure, there might be times when I've spent less time when traveling, or more when I'm just spending too much time on there. But I think anything beyond an hour a day is probably, in my opinion, excessive. And I know people do it for work sometimes, because I know what that's like. I do actually run a social media page for a small business, and I have done stuff like running my Pushing Film page, and which is half kind of treated as a business. So sure, that's fine. If it's your job, that's a different story. But if you're finding yourself demotivated and uninspired and whatnot, make sure you know about that feature. Make sure you check in and see that you're not spending excessive amounts of time on there, and think about what you could be doing with that time. For example, if you have 1 or 2 hours daily average, or even 45 minutes, ask yourself, is that benefiting me? How much of that time is beneficial? And if not, what could I be spending that 1 hour on that I would definitely find more beneficial? Such as going outside in nature for a walk, or going and getting some exercise, or editing my own photos and experimenting and getting creative in some other way. So that's my second point. I won't dwell too much more on that, but I think it's really important, making sure you're not spending too much time. And the third pitfall, which I put down, is putting weight in numbers. So putting too much focus in the likes and followers and all that kind of thing, and starting to find a sense of identity in your online profile, in the online version of yourself on Instagram, on TikTok, on whatever it is. So don't do it, basically. Try not to. I know it's easier said than done, and everyone, including myself, has some subconscious connection to seeing some number pop up, or someone liking it and feeling cool. Lots of people like this photo, and I get it. I'm the same. But don't put too much weight in those numbers, because number one, the platform is always evolving. Those numbers meant something different when the platform started to what it was 5 years ago and what it is now, because the algorithm changes, and what the numbers used to be isn't the same, and it was easier to get likes, and then it's harder, then it becomes easier again. So you can't use that as a statistic to put any sense of worth into, or any meaningful sense of worth into. Secondly, even on a micro basis, it changes a lot. The algorithm, for example, might look at a certain photo, and I think I have a really good example from something recent. I'll try and put it up on the screen, but I had something where, for example, for whatever reason, the algorithm either doesn't like it, or there's some keyword or language you've used or something, and it gets very few likes. And then you might post a photo that's objectively not that much different or better, and it gets a lot more likes because there's something that triggered the algorithm in a good way. So yeah, there is that aspect of it. Secondly, despite all that, what meaning will these numbers have for you down the track in the future? If you're not treating this like a business, if it's not about marketing and some kind of job that involves you reaching high numbers for engagement and advertising or marketing, if you're using it on a personal basis, these numbers shouldn't really mean anything at all. Sure, if they're coming from your personal friends, you're like, hey, my friend Bob liked the photo. Cool. Hey, Bob, what do you think of this? Have that personal connection with that person that you know. If it's lots of people you don't even know in real life, then what does it really matter? It's just a number showing up on your screen. The people designing these apps know how our brains are wired to actually respond to these things, to seeing things tick over, to seeing refreshing a page and the amount of time delay between a refresh. And it's all very meticulously studied in order to keep you on the platform, to keep you engaged, and to keep you getting, those dopamine hits and some sense of enjoyment out of seeing numbers pop up, whether it's how many followers you have or how many likes you got on a photo. And again, I'm not trying to preach, and I know it's easier said than done, and you might look and say, oh, well, you've got this many followers and whatever. But again, like I said, if I started my account many years ago and I have a YouTube channel where people might pour in from there, or there's certain reasons where outside of your control in any direct sense, your numbers will be different to other people. So don't put too much weight in those numbers. Remind yourself what it really is. It's just an app. If I lost my account tomorrow, big deal. I wouldn't care. It's my photography still alive on my hard drive, on my backups and my negatives, and I would be a lot more upset about. I do care about those numbers, and there's reason for that. Those are my precious memories, and those are the actual photos. But where I'm putting them up on Instagram is not a reflection of the reality of what I'm hoping to get out of photography. It's a great aspect of it. I enjoy it. It's good, but just beware of those pitfalls. So that was it. I'm sure there's a lot more. You can comment more. Let me know what your pitfalls are. I just noted down those main 3 because I thought they were resonant with a lot of comments I've heard from people. Even in real life, I have people say that like they're just feeling unmotivated to post or this or that. And it's like, well, that's fine. You don't need to post. It's a photo sharing platform. And then it turns into a video sharing platform, a hybridized thing of Reels and an advertising platform. It's not what it used to be. So don't worry too much. If you love photography, just keep taking photos, keep learning, keep enjoying it, and look at photo books. Go to exhibitions, go to galleries, find other ways to gain inspiration. But also use Instagram in a way that is beneficial. You can find inspiration there. I still enjoy using it. I love seeing other people's work on there. I like posting to there every now and then, but if I don't for a couple of weeks, it's fine. And another big tip I have is that what works for me at least, it's just my default habit, is I have a photo I want to share or 2 or whatever. I put it up and leave it. I try not to come back and check religiously or anything like that. And that's just what works for me. If I post in the morning, I'll leave it. If I've checked back once or twice, sure, whatever. It's mainly because I might want to see other people's stuff. But then I'll leave it until later that night or the next day, and just it feels good to forget about it. And then if and when you do come back another day, it's just like, oh, cool, whoever might have interacted, and you can respond, and then take only the good, but try not to get sucked in too much is what I'm trying to say. All right, so that's it. That's what I wanted to rant about a little bit today. Hopefully not too much of a rant. Hopefully you found something useful out of it. But again, please share your thoughts in the comments. Do you mostly find good out of Instagram? All I hear lately is people just shitting on it, really, and saying they hate it. And I get it. I get why. There's lots of reasons why they might dislike it. And sure, I don't blame you if you completely leave the platform or similar platforms. More power to you. But I do think there's some good. You just have to be aware of those pitfalls. It's kind of like, you're going into a cave and it's a dark and dreary place, but you can't see, and there might be some literal potholes and whatnot you just have to be careful of. But there's amazing things you can find in caves, and it's a natural wonder, and there's you can find treasures, but you have to be careful of the pitfalls and try not to spend too long down there and get back out. All right, so let me know what you think. Thanks for tuning into this video on my personal channel. I'll try and do stuff a little bit more regularly. Again, like I said in my first video, I'm not going to commit to anything schedule-wise. I just enjoy popping in here when I have time. But I do have another couple of ideas I've jotted down for videos, one of which is about some fitness goals I have for this year, and maybe just doing a personal update as to how YouTube and work and stuff is going, both for my regular work and for my Pushing Film, my larger YouTube channel. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed. You got something out of it. And I'll see you in the next video.